17 years old, standing on a curb with $12 crumpled in my pocket and everything I owned stuffed into a garbage bag. Fast forward to today, and the same people who threw me away are asking if they can move into my $750,000 house. Sometimes life writes better revenge stories than fiction ever could, but this isn't about revenge. This is about the moment you realize you were never the problem. The conversation that changed everything happened on an ordinary Tuesday. My father was reading the financial section, coffee going cold beside him, when he told me something that would echo in my head for years. He explained, with the casual certainty of someone discussing the weather, that I simply wasn't made for anything important. My older brother Nathan was destined for greatness, he said. I was just there to fill space. Not the air, just the spare tire in the trunk. You keep it around in case something goes wrong, but you never really expect to need it. Growing up in that house felt like being a supporting actor who never got any lines. Nathan had everything: the bedroom, with the view overlooking the lake, the brand new car on his 16th birthday, with the bow still on it, the endless second chances whenever he messed up. Our dad would clap him on the back and call him champion, even when he failed spectacularly. Me? I got the clothes Nathan outgrew, threadbare and stained. I got the suspicious looks when something went missing, even when I was provably somewhere else. I got lectures about being too visible, too loud, taking up too much space in a house that should have been my home. I started making myself smaller, quieter, trying to disappear into the walls. I thought maybe I was defective somehow. Maybe something was fundamentally wrong with me that everyone could see except me. Maybe if I worked harder, stayed quieter, proved myself more useful, things would change. Maybe if I became perfect enough, they'd finally see me. So I tried everything I could think of. Got my first job at 15, washing dishes at a diner until my hands wrinkled like raisins and smelled permanently of bleach and old grease. I'd come home exhausted, fingers raw, and nobody would ask how my day went. Kept my grades steady, solid B's and A's, without anyone checking if I'd done my homework or studying for tests. Even tutored Nathan through algebra when his grades started sliding dangerously toward failing. I'd spend hours explaining concepts to him at the kitchen table while our parents watched television in the next room. And when his grades improved, they'd praise his hard work without mentioning my help. Nothing shifted. Nothing changed. My mother would accuse me of laziness for sleeping past 8 on Sunday mornings, even though I'd been closing the restaurant until 2 a.m. the night before. My father dismissed my dreams of culinary school as a lack of ambition, saying real success meant business school or law school, and Nathan just watched it all with this knowing smirk plastered on his face, like he was enjoying a show put on specifically for his entertainment. Like my struggle was his personal comedy. Everything exploded. One humid summer night before my senior year, the kind of night where the air feels thick and everything seems to move in slow motion. Nathan came home from a party and totaled his car, drunk behind the wheel, the front end crumpled like paper. I found him sobbing in the garage at 2 a.m, blood running down his face from a nasty gash on his forehead, hands shaking, absolutely terrified of what our parents would do. The golden boy had finally shattered his golden image. He begged me not to say anything, grabbed my arm so hard it left bruises, his eyes wild with panic. So I didn't tell them the truth. I made a choice that would cost me everything. I told them I'd taken the car without permission, that I'd been driving recklessly, that I'd crashed it and panicked and run. I thought this was it, the defining moment, the one where they'd finally see me as loyal, as trustworthy, as someone capable of sacrifice, as someone worth keeping around. I thought protecting Nathan would finally earn me a place in this family. Instead, my father pointed at the door. His voice was calm, measured, disappointed. He told me to get my things and leave because I'd humiliated the family beyond repair. That night, I slept on a bench at a bus stop 6 blocks from the only home I'd ever known. When I went back the next morning to get my school bag, I found a trash bag with my clothes thrown inside and a note taped to it. The note said I was on my own now, and maybe this would teach me something valuable. Nobody called, nobody checked, nobody drove by the places they knew I hung out. My mother told people at church I'd chosen to run away because I had behavioral problems, that she'd tried everything, but I was determined to rebel. Nathan posted vacation photos from Miami. 2 weeks later, bright blue ocean and palm trees, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just destroyed someone's life. I survived by working overnight shifts at a gas station, the kind of place where time moves differently, and the fluorescent lights make everything feel unreal. I slept in the storage room on flattened cardboard boxes when the manager left, curled up between shelves of motor oil and candy bars. I washed in the gas station bathroom sink. I ate expired sandwiches from the trash behind the deli next door. The worst part wasn't the hunger or the exhaustion or even the fear of being discovered and kicked out of my makeshift shelter. It was the complete and absolute silence from the people who were supposed to love me. No birthday acknowledgments, no holiday cards, no casual text asking if I was alive or dead or suffering. It was as if I'd been erased from their story entirely, like I'd never existed, like those 17 years of my life in their house had been nothing but a brief footnote they could simply delete. 3 years of complete silence. 3 years of building myself from absolutely nothing, from less than nothing, taking night classes at community college while working full-time, studying in 24-hour diners with free coffee refills, eventually earning an associate degree in business that I attended alone because I had nobody to invite. I moved 3 towns over to escape the possibility of running into anyone from my old life, started a tiny freelance marketing consultancy, working from library computers because I couldn't afford internet and coffee shop Wi-Fi when I could nurse 1 drink for hours. Slowly, painfully, 1 client at a time, I built something real from the ashes of what they'd left me with. I helped small businesses increase their online presence, taught myself everything from YouTube tutorials and free online courses. I was good at it, really good. Good enough that the local Chamber of Commerce eventually featured me on a billboard as an emerging young entrepreneur, my face 40 feet high on Route 9. That billboard represented everything I'd clawed my way toward. It was proof that I wasn't what they'd called me. It was validation that I'd survived and thrived despite them, not because of them. That billboard changed everything. My mother's text came out of nowhere. 4 words. "Is that you on Route 9? I stared at my phone for 20 minutes before answering. Yes, it was me. Within hours, my phone was flooded. My father called. Nathan left voicemails. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect. Everyone was proud. Everyone was interested. Everyone wanted to catch up. But I could see through it, like glass. They didn't care about me. They cared about what I had become. My mother's voicemail confirmed it. She mentioned they were going through financial difficulties. Nathan and his wife were facing eviction. She wondered if I still had that spare bedroom I used to talk about. I actually laughed out loud because there was no spare bedroom. I'd bought an entire house, paid cash, no mortgage. But I didn't respond. Not that day, not the next. Not even when relatives started messaging me about how family helps family in times of need. Family. They wanted to use that word now. The following week, I came home from a meeting with a client, feeling good about landing a new contract, and saw their car parked across from my house. The same silver sedan they'd driven for years. Slightly more dented now, paint fading. My mother was sitting on my porch, holding a container of what looked like homemade banana bread, the same recipe she used to make for Nathan's birthdays, but never mine. She stood up when she saw me, arms already opening for a hug I had no intention of giving her. She told me I looked wonderful, that success suited me. She said she wanted to talk, to catch up like old friends who'd simply lost touch. I leaned against my car and asked her directly what was wrong with Nathan. Her expression shifted immediately, the mask slipping, and I knew I'd hit the truth. This wasn't about reconciliation or love or regret. This was about need. She explained that Nathan and his pregnant wife, Alyssa, had lost their apartment after falling behind on rent for 3 months. They needed somewhere temporary, just a few months to get back on their feet, she said. My father thought maybe they could all stay with me, just until Nathan found stable work again. I felt something cold settle in my chest, spreading through my ribs like ice water. I reminded her quietly, carefully, that they'd thrown me out with a garbage bag and a handwritten note when I was 17 years old, that they'd told me to learn something from being homeless, from sleeping on benches and in storage rooms, that they'd erased me from their lives completely. And now they wanted me to give up my hard-earned peace, my carefully constructed sanctuary, for the son they'd chosen over me time and time again. She tried to justify it, her voice getting defensive, saying it was complicated back then, that they'd done what seemed right at the time, that everyone makes mistakes. She said I should understand that family forgives family. I told her no, she wasn't coming inside. There was no spare room. This house was mine, and it would stay mine. She called me selfish as I turned to open my door. I turned back and told her I wasn't selfish. I was just done being remembered only when people needed something. Then I closed the door and didn't look back. That night, I lay awake, thinking about everything. Part of me felt guilty, that old familiar voice, asking if maybe I was wrong now, if maybe I should be the bigger person. But then, I remembered specific moments. The principal's office, when Nathan lied about me hitting him, and my mother cried for him without even looking at me, being pulled out of school and thrown out of my house while my brother watched from his window. The years of nothing. I didn't owe them anything, but I wanted something more than just saying no and closing a door. I wanted the truth out there where it couldn't be hidden or rewritten or spun into another lie. So I wrote a detailed email to my extended family, all the cousins and aunts and uncles who'd only heard their carefully edited version of events for years. I told them everything, with dates and details. The car accident Nathan caused while driving drunk that I took the fall for. The garbage bag on the porch with that cruel note attached. The years they pretended I didn't exist while telling everyone I was troubled. The sudden renewed interest the moment they saw I had money and success. I even included a screenshot of an old text message from Nathan, bragging to a friend about how easily they'd gotten rid of me, how I'd been stupid enough to take the blame, how our parents had believed him, without question. Then I took a deep breath and hit send, watching the email disappear into the digital void, knowing there was no taking it back. The family group chat exploded within an hour. Messages poured in from relatives shocked that they'd never known. Apologies from people who thought I'd run away to do drugs. Questions from cousins who'd wondered why I disappeared. Some messages felt awkward, more about their discomfort than my pain. But I didn't mind. I'd written it for truth, not sympathy. Then Alyssa, Nathan's wife, messaged me. She said she'd had no idea. Nathan had told her I was violent and unstable, that our grandmother had taken me in after I'd attacked my mother. She felt sick. Alyssa messaged again. She'd left Nathan the night before. Apparently, she'd read my email aloud to him, and he'd laughed at first, then got defensive, then angry. He'd grabbed her phone, tried to delete it, yelled at her. 7 months pregnant. she'd finally had enough of his lies. She packed a bag and went to her sister's. She said my message had shown her a pattern she'd been ignoring, and she knew their baby deserved better. I didn't celebrate. I just told her she'd made the right choice. Nathan didn't handle exposure well. He never had. 3 days later, I was leaving my favorite coffee shop, the one where I'd spent countless hours building my business on their Wi-Fi, when someone called my name. I turned, and he was standing there in the parking lot, looking hollow and defeated, unshaven with dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same varsity jacket he'd worn a decade ago, like he was desperately clinging to his glory days, to the last time anyone had thought he was special. He asked if I thought I was better than him now, his voice dripping with bitterness. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, really looked at him, and saw someone who'd never had to build anything for himself. He got closer, invading my space. Too close. He smelled like cheap alcohol and failure. He accused me of playing victim my whole life, of wanting sympathy and attention. He admitted casually, almost proudly, that he'd lied about everything. He asked what it mattered anyway, since I'd survived, since I had my big house and my billboard and my successful business. In his mind, his lies had somehow made me stronger, so I should be thanking him. I wanted to list every night I'd cried myself to sleep, every birthday alone, every moment I'd questioned my worth because of him. But he wanted a scene, wanted drama, so I just stepped around him, opened my car door, and said one thing. He'd lied, I'd thrived, and he had to live with that forever. Then I drove away, leaving him in that parking lot. That evening, I had dinner with my grandmother, the only person who'd never needed proof of what I'd been through. I told her about the email, the messages, the confrontation with Nathan. She listened quietly, hands folded, occasionally nodding. When I finished, she reached across the table and held my hand. She told me I'd done well. That was all I needed to hear. A week later, a certified letter arrived from my parents' attorney. They were considering defamation proceedings over my email. I laughed. My own lawyer told me to relax. Their case was baseless, especially with Nathan's own texts as evidence. I never heard from their attorney again. They went silent, and I realized something. When you stop being useful to people, you stop existing to them. I decided to frame the note they'd left on my trash bag that night, the one telling me I was on my own. I hung it in my office next to my Chamber of Commerce award. Some people frame diplomas. I framed a rejection and turned it into fuel. My father had called me the spare, the extra, the one who didn't matter. But that's not how this story ends. It began again with another knock on my door at dusk. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. My father stood there, and he looked smaller somehow, diminished. He was holding an envelope, not trying to sell me anything or ask for anything. He said he was signing their house over to me. My grandmother had told him I'd earned it more than anyone. That's when I knew something was wrong. He told me she was sick, cancer, stage 4. My grandmother didn't want me to know, he said. She thought it would distract me from my work. She was proud of me. That word, proud, hit me harder than any other. We sat on my porch in silence, the same porch where my mother had begged for help months earlier. I thought about the garden my grandmother and I had planted together, lavender and rosemary and marigolds. She'd called it her living prayer. She died 3 weeks later in my home, the home they'd said I'd never deserve. I held her hand as her breathing slowed. She wasn't afraid. She just made me promise to plant something new every spring, because that's how you start fresh. After she passed, I found a wooden box under her bed with a letter addressed to me. Inside were journal entries she'd kept for years, documenting everything: my ignored birthdays, the lies Nathan told, The way my mother called me a mistake when she thought no one heard. She'd recorded it all as proof. At the bottom was a notarized deed transfer, making me sole heir to her property. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't devastated, but because her final act wasn't about sadness. It was about justice. She'd rewritten our family story. I kept her funeral small and private, just people who actually cared. But my family showed up anyway, hovering at the edges, waiting for their moment. After the service, my mother approached and asked if it was true that my grandmother had left everything to me. I looked her in the eye and said yes. That night, they left another letter on my doorstep, formal, typed, requesting temporary accommodation for healing and family transition. They wanted to live in her house, the house where she'd taken me in when they'd thrown me out. I sat with that letter for a long time. Then I wrote back. I addressed it formally to Mr. and Mrs. Turner. I thanked them for their interest, but explained that all rooms were currently occupied by peace, silence, dignity, and the overdue scent of lavender. I couldn't accommodate guests who'd abandoned those values in the past. I suggested they find shelter in the structures they'd built with their own choices. I signed it and posted it online. It went viral. People shared it everywhere, not for drama, but because it resonated. There are so many of us out there, so many people told we were extra, unnecessary, disposable. So many of us who turned out to be essential after all. Today, I walked through my grandmother's garden and planted a white rose bush called Rebirth, just like I promised her. This story doesn't end in bitterness or anger. It ends with roots, with growth, with the understanding that I was never the spare part. I was the seed that refused to die. Thanks for being here and hearing this story. If it resonated with you, consider subscribing, because there are more stories like this, stories about people who survived what should have broken them and came out stronger on the other side.